Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hanging out with this nerd.
I'm Ted.
And we have a GM91 from Sean Bolak over on the forums. And he had asked about, we actually did a video on this a little while ago as well, but his players always want to make ability checks. They just want to grab the D20 and they want to roll.
Before we get into that, though, once you guys go down to the description below, sign up for the newsletter. It's a great way to get tips delivered straight to your inbox, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
So, okay, this does get old and annoying after a while. And, here's the thing. You might just want to tell them, especially if it's, if it's not something that they're likely to have ever encountered, if they don't have the proficiency in this skill, just tell them they can't check. They can't make the check.
Right.
Now, I know you want incentives to, keep them from it.
It's called a backhand.
Oh. I don't think that's an incentive. Well, maybe.
It's an incentive to not touch those dice.
It's a punishment.
And I will, I will say that there's times where, I have gotten angry at the table and tell them to just put down the damn dice. And it really is a situation where, some players are trained, and regardless of where your roots come from or where you think it is, there are people who believe that every situation calls for me picking up a die and rolling it and adding whatever appropriate modifiers to know whether I succeed or fail. Some characters are going to have information, some characters are going to have no way to have that information, and some characters will just have a chance. If you have a chance, the DM will tell you to use your dice. So, other than that, chill.
One of the things that he's concerned about is, if the players are always doing this, then it steps on the toes of the characters that are actually knowledge based and proficiency based. In the sense that hey, why did they even bother taking this? Because everyone's just going to roll dice anyway.
And then it becomes a who rolls better on a D20 tonight. Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing. So the way you can handle this and let those characters still feel more special is just give them information. Instead of making them make a roll or a check, but okay, who's trained in knowledge of nature? Well, maybe this is what you know about this plant, and then if they make a check, then they can get even more information.
Right. And
maybe the players that don't have the skill or proficiency, what you do with them is if they make the check, you give them the information you would have given the player that didn't have to make the check.
Right.
So you
essentially have tiers.
Yes.
And if you are proficient, you are considered the next tier. Say if you have expertise, well then clearly you have expertise for a reason. It's not just because especially with a knowledge skill, it's not because you just happen to automatically be gifted with this information. You've probably read a lot, which is why, you have that double proficiency.
And then in the case of monsters, if they're they always want to make a check to see about a monster, here's the thing too, especially with people that aren't trained, you're well, do you want to take the time to examine it? Is what do you want to use you ask them, do you want to use your action to examine the monster? Right?
That's a good incentive.
And now where someone who's actually trained and proficient in something that might actually know them, you might actually go, oh, well, you can get a little piece of information out of glints that you just pull from your memory.
Right.
Where the other person, the incentive can be okay, are you going to stand here and look at the monster and check him out? Why?
All right, well, it's
trying to eat you.
He's 6.5 feet tall. Let's block that strike. Okay, well, he seems pretty strong. Oh, let's dodge that one. Okay, well, he's
that was my entrails he just pulled out. Ah.
Give him back.
So, and I totally appreciate the fact that Sean wants an incentive to give his players, but it's kind of hard. So in this case, it's more you're going to probably more or less
decentivize.
Decentivize them to certain behaviors.
Right.
Out of combat, maybe you make them take more time as well. You don't have to sit there the whole time, but you can be oh, well, it's going to take you a little while to examine whatever and think about it if you've ever heard of this or seen anything like it before. And again, you're just going to give them higher DCs or less information for the information they gain than someone that's actually invested in that skill set.
And legitimately, I think that makes sense. A higher DC for someone who hasn't studied a particular, skill, can you guess?
Yeah, it's a matter of luck. Did you happen to come across something or someone or read a book or whatever?
Right.
And especially in a medieval fantasy game, where knowledge is not readily available, it's not widespread. Books were literally handwritten.
And another possible way is if you make a check and you roll close, maybe give them wrong information.
Yeah, you could do that as well. Absolutely.
So be like, okay, well, this plant is normally, designed as, something that is designed to, like, put on a wound to help it heal. Well, you've heard in a tale that it's actually, consumed as, a laxative to help somebody who's eaten something that they shouldn't have, or, whatever happened.
Right.
And now
it turns out it's poisonous if you eat it.
And now the party is going to sit there and squabble over, well, what's the correct definition and this and that, and are they going to pull, well, I rolled a 17, well, I rolled an 18,
Well, yeah.
Are they going to go through that kind of stuff? And maybe after a couple of times of these little things, they're like, well, maybe I'm just not going to roll that check anymore.
Yeah, I'm not good at that. So, and that's the other thing. And one of the things too is like, obviously, you can start implementing this kind of stuff in your game, but you can also just talk to them and be like, you don't need to roll every time because I'll let you know if I need a check from you.
Yeah.
And you can give them your opinion on how the proficiency system works and how you're gonna use it in your game, and if you're gonna modify things and tier it, you should tell them. Let them know. Look, if you have the skill, you get more information when you figure it out. You might get free information, and if you don't have the skill,
your check is even harder.
It's harder. Yeah.
Because that's not your area.
And you could also elaborate, like, if you haven't studied a field and you're trying to pull this information from it, you could say, well, you're basically going off of gossip and snippets you might have read, so there's no guarantee that your information is actually accurate or correct. So that is also a consideration. Where someone who is trained, you're going like they're less likely to come up with wrong answers or and have wrong conclusions. They still can.
Right. Are you going to trust the surgeon or the guy who had health in high school?
That's a good question. But hopefully, Sean, this helps you out. I'm curious to see how everyone handles it in their games. What do you do with your dice happy players? Let us know in the comments below. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can also check us out on Facebook.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.